Hey guys, and welcome back. So now we're going to start shading and rendering the rock splash effects, and in this one we're only interested in the whitewater points. We don't care about the flip mesh or the flip points. We're only going to render the whitewater, and we have two methods in Houdini. We can or three methods. We can render the whitewater as points, actual points, or we can render them as points but shade them as volume. So Mantra will turn in any enclosed or watertight surface into a volume, and we can use a volume shader on that. The third method is to take all the points and rasterize them into a volume. So convert all the points into a VDB and then render that as a volume itself. So we're gonna explore the two methods to render basically the three methods, and we're gonna go over each one of them, and hopefully we'll give you guys plenty of options on how to solve these kind of visuals. So let's create some lights. I need an environment light, and we're gonna use an HDR. In this example, I don't care about the geometry itself. We're gonna mat it, and we're gonna focus on the points themselves. So let's import the HDR map that I have. It's a very basic HDR map, and let's create a new geo node, and I'm gonna call this whitewater read, and I'm gonna dive inside, and I'm gonna read the sim file. So I have one cache frame 75, and I have multiple attributes. I don't need all of this at the moment, and we have groups, we don't need them. I'm gonna clean this up so we don't need to send all this to Mantra. So I'm gonna delete pretty much everything except ID, V, and P-scale, and we're gonna delete all the groups. Okay, so we have our points, and I'm gonna do one more change here at the main level, at the top level. I'm gonna go under geometry, under the render tab, geometry. I'm gonna change this to render as points. I'm gonna change it to render only points in case we have other things in this read geo. We only care about rendering this as points. So let's look through the camera. And let's go to the out context, create a Mantra node, and we're going to change the render engine to physically based. That's what we want to use, and that's pretty much it. Let's take a look. So it's exporting the points at the moment. We do have a lot of points. It's 18 million or 19 million points. I'm gonna lower that so it's faster to iterate over. I'm gonna create a wrangle node. Let's see first. Okay, so everything is working. We have our points rendering. The P-scale is probably too big. It's too big, so we want to lower that. And this is how we render them as points if we want to use this method. But this is pretty basic. What I'm interested in is to render this effects as volume. And let me first delete some points, and I'll explain this. I'm going to use a wrangle node and say if rand of ptnum is less than 0.9, this is going to delete 90% of the points. I'm going to remove point 0 and at ptnum. Cool. And we're going to create a shader now. So let's go to the material context, and I'm going to create a material builder. It's not visible here because of the screen, so I'm going to go under shaders, and this is what I need. I'm going to call this whitewater volume, and let's create one sphere instead. And I'm going to set it to polygons. And let's increase this sphere and set it to be at the center. This way we're going to be able to visualize how the shader looks like much better. And then we're going to switch it with the high-res geo. So let's increase this. And I'm going to turn this off for now because we want the full surface. And let's assign the new shader. And that's going to be, I can't remember. Yeah, this one. Cool. So what we need is, we need a compute lighting node. I'm going to connect this like that. Sorry. OF goes into the OF, CF, and then the function. And we need a volume shader. So if we hit tab and go under shaders, this is the one we want, a volume shader core. And I'm going to connect this. And here I'm going to leave it to the defaults. We just need to do expose. Sorry, we need to expose this. And we have to make sure that the attribute name is called density. That's how it wants it to be. We don't need this node. I'm going to delete it, but we need to create another property nodes and populate it with a few more things, because this is a geometry and Mantra needs some indication that we want to render this as a volume, not just the shader. So what we want to do is add 3 attributes. One is called volume density. Let me check. Yes. So if we go and set, sorry, I was in the by type tab. We go here. That's the attribute we want, the first one. So volume. We have a lot of volumes. I'm going to filter volume density. That's the first one I need. And then we need a volume uniform attribute. This one. And then we need a volume samples node or attribute. So I'm going to drag all this, hit apply, and now I have them here. And I'm going to link the density from this, the density scale, onto here. And we need to turn on uniform volumes. Let's go up and let's hit render. If everything is correct, we should see this sphere rendering as volume. And it is. So I don't need the rocks, so I'm going to select them and turn on matte shading. And you can see the sphere is not a solid at all. It has it's a volume, so that's the trick we're going to do. And this is something by default in Mantra. If we have any watertight geometry, it can convert them or treat them as volume on the fly, which is very, very handy for whitewater and things where you have a lot of particles and you want them to look volumetric. And we can tweak the density scale, so it's much denser now, and we can lower the shadow. So the volume itself is dense, but the shadow rays can travel faster. So this is how we can do that. And we have a few basic controls. We can change it from between forward scattering and backward scattering. So this is anisotropic surface. You can see it's becoming more flat because it's reflecting more of the environment light. And if we inverse it, it's reflecting less of the environment light towards the camera. It's more on the edge. So it depends on the look that you want. You can choose between these two methods. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go back to the whitewater read node. Let's change this to render points only. And I'm gonna lower the P scale to 0.5. And I'm gonna turn this off. I don't need the delete. I want to render all the points. I'm gonna go to the Mantra node and hit render to mplay, and then we're gonna continue in the next video. Let's wait for this to come up first. the camera was not selected, so let's do that. Now it's going to take a few seconds for it to export. And now MPlay is up. And it's going to read the geometry and start rendering. And we're going to continue in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.